A new report finds that AI is falling way short on productivity. I have to say, I told you so. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Dave Linthicum is Not AI. I'm Dave, an AI SME and an AI skeptic, looking at AI with a balanced perspective. Let's get started. So this one came to my attention via some people following me on LinkedIn who sent it to me, and I wasn't even aware of it. So it kind of flew under my radar. I guess it flew under other radars as well, but it's a pretty informative report. So a new paper by the Remote Labor Index measuring AI automation of remote work, and I'll go ahead and link it in the description so you can check it out yourself, offers a reality check on how much economic value AI is actually delivering. And what I like about this report is not just a flyby article that's 500 to 800 words written in about 5 minutes, but it's a detailed report, lots of different authors, very much like an academic paper. So it, not only makes the assertions, but it has data to back up the assertions. So instead of grading models on narrow benchmarks or flashy demos, the study tests frontier agents on 240 real freelance projects across 23 domains of paid remote work. So reality check. In other words, how we can actually apply this in the real world, and what's AI capable of doing, and what is it not capable of doing. So its conclusion is striking. Current systems perform near the floor, with the best agent automating only 2.5% of projects at a human acceptable level. So really low score, much lower than I think I would even thought that it would have rated. But it's not surprising given the fact that people have these high expectations of AI. And when they actually apply it, they're kind of find the reality in terms of, what it's not capable of doing. And, people are looking for AI to replace humans. We're not there yet. And I think this study really kind of proves it out. For anyone claiming AI is already transforming work at scale, this study is strong evidence that the practical value remains far more limited today. So this is in essence proving what I've been talking about for years. The fact of the matter is that while AI is going to be handy and it's able to automate tasks, it's not going to replace humans for the most part. Not that people's jobs won't change and some people will be displaced, but this huge replacement of humans with AI is just not something that's going to be possible today. Maybe at some time. I'm always looking to the future and seeing where this capability will finally show up. But I knew when people were making these huge promises around AI back in 2022, when the whole generative AI stuff took off, and obviously lots of people were new to looking at AI, and the expectations were set way too high, so much so that many of the CEOs or people running companies, went off and fired a bunch of people, and ultimately, it backfired on them. When they were truly firing people because they thought they could be replaced with AI, they ended up hiring everybody back, or at least getting most of their staff back. And of course, there's many companies out there that laid people off, that used AI as a convenient excuse. And obviously, AI wasn't necessarily the driver for those. It was overhiring, typically, over the last 5 years, and they're just looking for a way to easily explain the fact that they're going to reduce staff. So again, the study punctuates the hype because the best AI systems could only automate 2.5% of real freelance projects. And I think it'll be interesting to see if people actually take this to heart and understand what the limitations are. We're still going to see the stupid, actions of, some of these companies now where they're overestimating the value that AI is going to bring. And I think this kind of normalization is going to occur, as we start rolling stuff out and people realize the limitations. So, in many instances, companies, I think, have to touch the stove. They have this high expectations of what AI is. They've, made promises to the board of directors and promises to the investors. And now they're rolling it out to see these magnificent cost savings, these magnificent efficiencies they're going to be able to get from AI. And it's not happening because the technology is not ready yet. And it won't be ready for a long period of time. We're not going to hit AGI, certainly in my lifetime. And everybody keeps overestimating the value of this technology. And I think ultimately it's going to hurt the technology because people are going to have a massive adjustment in terms of what this technology can really do versus what was promised. And the technology is going to get a bit of a ding, so to speak, and for no reason. We have a tendency to push up and hype particular technologies. And eventually we figure out, they're kind of getting there, but it's going to take a while. And they're much lower in value than we think they are. So AI may look powerful in benchmarks, but the paper shows it's still failing on the overwhelming majority of real paid work. So when you try to get AI applicable to a job that's going to have value for a particular business, that's where we realize it's going to fall short, because we're not adjusting a job or adjusting a task around the limitations and capabilities of AI. We're taking real paid work, in other words, that we're going to pay somebody for, and we're trying to automate it with AI, and that's where it comes up short. People have a tendency to, kind of cook the benchmarks and cook the use cases, and so they're adapting their use cases around the capabilities of AI. That's not the real world. The real world is we have a particular task, we have a particular job, which has static things that need to be done, and AI can either do it or not. So if the standard is whether reasonable clients would actually accept the deliverable, this study says AI usually does not make the cut. So if we're asking it to create PowerPoint presentations, we're asking it to write articles, we're asking it to do analysis of, data, things like that, we're having problems trying to match up all of the capabilities that AI is capable of doing. You got to remember, we're typically trying to remove the human beings from this loop, and that's where the problem comes in. Humans have to automate AI or use AI in a way that's going to be valuable to them. And again, AI is good at automating tasks. It's not good at replacing people. I don't know how many times I have to say that until it kind of sinks in with everybody. And if we're giving AI, like a person, real jobs, real work, that's where things are always going to fall short. And not only are we finding that out in this study, but, all of the companies that, try to do the great replacement around AI and try to replace humans and end up having to hire everybody back, ended up damaging themselves. They found this out as well. So the real story here is not transformation, but underperformance, because frontier models are still near the floor on economical, valuable remote work. So in other words, if it's something we actually need to get done, there's no derivation in terms of what that task is. That has to be a static thing that we're asking somebody to do, whether it's AI, a person, or AI and a person. And if we're just asking AI, it's going to run into issues. It's kind of the 80-20 rule. It's able to, do 80% of the work via the capabilities of AI, but the extra 20% is where it's going to fall down. It doesn't have those additional capabilities, and that's where humans come in. They're able to use AI as a force multiplier for their own work and able to be more efficient. When we start replacing people, that's where the thing falls down. So the bottom line is that AI is showing isolated usefulness, but the study says the broad business value story is clearly run ahead of the facts. That is key. I love that sentence because, ultimately, that's kind of what's going on right now in the marketplace. In other words, we're way far ahead of our skis in terms of the usefulness of AI and its abilities and capabilities. Everybody was so enamored with the great demo that could be, a generative AI system back in 2022 when ChatGPT first launched, and got hugely involved in believing that the next generation of stuff is going to be this huge revolution that's going to occur in business. When the reality is it's going to be evolution, which is going to be small little incremental things over time. So in other words, it's going to take 5 to 10 years before, AI has really any kind of value that's brought into the business, which it will have value, by the way. I'm a strong believer in the fact that AI can bring value to IT systems. I've been working on this stuff since the 80s. However, if we overestimate and overemphasize the science fiction values of this stuff and believe, the CEOs of the AI companies, everybody who's cheerleading for AI out there, and many of the studies that I'm seeing are very much slanted toward pro-AI and, AI replacing everybody in this, science fiction belief of what AI can be, that we're not going to get to where we need to be. We need to understand the limitations of this technology and do the proper planning and usage around the technology, implement it in architectures, implement it in IT, and roll it out where it should be rolled out. Right now, it's being pushed at use cases that have no business doing AI or even shouldn't be AI. I'm seeing that all the time. And people are just spending more money and not getting any additional value back. You got to remember, AI is not cheap. In other words, and it's 10 times, sometimes 20 times that of a traditional system, basically functioning the same way. And if you're going to build it and test it and operate it, then you're going to be paying the piper. You're going to be paying the high-tech vendors. So if you're going to use it, darn well make sure you're using it in a way that's going to return value back to the business. And that's where people are missing right now. So I'm seeing lots of moonshots. I'm seeing lots of, major projects and kind of wild investment spending that's going on in the space. And for no really good reason. And if they put a bit of planning behind it, understood what the technology is capable of, and also, more importantly, what it's not capable of, which is what this study highlighted, we're going to be much better off. Well, anyway, let me know what you think in the comments about this. Maybe the study, you don't agree with the study, you think it underestimated the capabilities of AI, or you think, like me, it was spot on. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos on this channel. Also, check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn learning courses, and of course, my generative AI architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers. And finally, my latest books, Unlocking the Power of Cloud and An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. Finally, check out my other YouTube channel, The Cloud Computing Insider. Link is in the description. So until next week, stay very, very safe. The magical YouTube algorithm thinks this is another one of my videos that you should watch next. Take care, guys.